On the phone, standing by, is Art Jibilian, who is possibly up for an award, the Congressional Medal of Honor. If Bob Latta has his way, he has introduced legislation to get that medal awarded to Art for service during World War II, and Art joins us on the phone now. Arthur, thanks for the time this morning. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, sir.
Well, listen, I've been reading about your exploits, and at one point when you were just a very young man, probably around 20, 21 years old, serving in World War II, you and your cohorts rescued over 500 American servicemen. Is that right?
Right, that is correct.
How was that? It was called Operation Halyard. What kind of operation was it, if you can explain in simple terms what was involved?
Well, I was in OSS, which is Office of Strategic Services, the precursor of the CIA, Central Intelligence Agency. And our boys were bombing strategically the oil fields of Ploesti so that we could knock out the German oil fields and gasoline supplies and thereby curtail the advantage of the Luftwaffe and the Panzer divisions, which was a good theory, but it cost us a tremendous amount of lives and airplanes, and many of the boys had to bail out over Poland, Czechoslovakia, and many over Yugoslavia.
And they were being held behind enemy lines then at that point as prisoners of war?
No, sir, they were not.
No.
They were enabled by the Serbian people, and there's three things I would like to get across. Number one, our gratitude to the Serbian people for taking care of our boys that were shot down. They sheltered them, they fed them, many times they clothed them, they tended their wounded. I would like to also thank General Draža Mihailović, who was abandoned by the Allies and called a traitor and a collaborator, and whose name I'm trying desperately to clear. He does not deserve to go down in history as a collaborator and a traitor. And the third thing I'd like to do is get an acknowledgement from our government of what the Serbian people and General Draža Mihailović did for our country and for our boys. There aren't very many countries that we owe, but we owe the Serbs.
On the phone with me right now, Art Jibilian, who was a member of the Tuskegee Airmen. Bob Latta, Congressman Bob Latta, has suggested and introduced legislation to get the Medal of Honor awarded to Art, who lives down in Fremont. Got actually drafted into World War II when he lived up here in Toledo, and you originally went into the Navy, right, Arthur?
Yes, sir, that is correct. Let me correct you one thing. I'm not a pilot, and I wasn't a member of the Tuskegee Airmen. I was in the Navy and volunteered to go on this mission to save these. Originally, we thought there were only 50 Americans in this area at Pranyany. And when I got there were 250 and not 50, and they had been, as I said, taken care of by the Serbs. And when we arranged the evacuation, it was originally we were going to have a night evacuation, but it was so treacherous and the airfield was so marginal that we decided we better have a daylight evacuation with the Tuskegee Airmen flying cover for us, because there was a German garrison at Chachak, which is about 25 miles away. So the next morning we had 14 C-47s, DC-3s, a civilian version. They came in and we loaded the wounded up first, and then by seniority we loaded the others up. Meanwhile, the Tuskegee Airmen kept the Germans busy dive bombing and strafing them a 50-mile radius, actually.
Now, you said it was going to be dangerous at night. How dangerous was it during the daylight hours when they could actually see you coming in, despite the fact that the Tuskegee Airmen were able to give you some cover with strafing and bombing?
Well, I don't know. The Tuskegee Airmen did one heck of a job, and their red tails, I think, struck fear in the Germans, because they had a real good reputation. Their reputation was they never lost a bomber to a German fighter.
That's fantastic. Those are amazing odds.
some people have challenged that, but if they lost any, it was mighty few, because they're the most decorated fighter squadron in World War II, and I can't say enough for them. When they got through with the evacuation, they put on an air show for us and for the people that came out to help us get the boys loaded and everything.
Now, let me ask you something. We haven't heard this story for years and years and years. Why did the government keep this kind of under wraps for so many decades? Was it because it was part of the OSS?
No, let me give you the real, if I have time. There is a political problem involved here. Mihailovich was the acknowledged leader initially when Germany invaded Yugoslavia.
Mm-hmm.
The United States hailed him as a hero. He was put on the cover of Time magazine, and hailed as a hero. And we supplied him, and he did a heck of a job fighting the Germans. And then when Germany invaded Russia, a fellow by the name of Joseph Broz, better known as Tito, went into Yugoslavia.
Right.
And he was welcomed. They fought the Germans together, but then Tito started communizing the villages.
Mm-hmm.
Mihailovich told him to cease and desist. He didn't. Civil war broke out, and they were fighting amongst themselves rather than the Germans. Russia was putting pressure on us to back Tito, and Churchill tried. I'll give him credit. He sent a fellow by the name of Klugman, who was supposedly to go to Mihailovich territory, or first of all, actually, he went to Tito's territory, and then he was going to go to Mihailovich territory and report back to Churchill which one was doing the most damage to the Germans. Unfortunately, Klugman was a mole for the Russians, and Tito wined and dined him, and he reported back to another mole in the Special Operations Executive of the English, and they reported to Churchill that Tito was the man to back. Mihailovich was not doing anything, and so they decided to abandon Mihailovich and give Tito all their guns and ammunition instead of Mihailovich.
So there's a lot of this story that isn't known, but I'm guessing, and I hope so, that the Gregory Freeman book, The Forgotten 500, will cover a lot of this territory for people who want to get into the nuts and the bolts and all the details of what happened over there. But it gets us up to today, to when Congressman Bob Latta has put together legislation to see if they can get you the Congressional Medal of Honor. I'm guessing that's not something you probably ever expected for serving your country, is it?
No, I never expected that. This is I get a little choked up thinking about it. It's a little bit more than I ever bargained for. If I hadn't done it, somebody else would have done it.
Well, and a lot of people who are heroes say exactly the same thing, that they were just doing their job, they were serving their country, and if I hadn't done it, someone else would have.
That's
but the
right.
fact of the matter is, you are the guy who did it, Mr. Jibilian, and we thank you for that. We thank you for your service and for your help in the Tuskegee Airmen and rescuing those 500 service people and getting them out of there. And we'll work real hard on this end, along with Congressman Latta, to make sure that you get the Congressional Medal of Honor, because you certainly deserve it for your service and for the actions you took with the OSS in World War II.
Thank you, sir.
Well, and I thank you, and thanks for the time. You have yourself a great weekend.
You too.